In today's video, I'm going to be continuing my series of ranking top draft picks, and in today's video, we are going to be doing the number 5 overall draft pick since 2000 tier list maker, and I did add an extra tier. I added disappointing in between flat out bust and good but not worth the pick because, again, I think there is a pretty significant gap between the two, and also I still have superstar, in which that is a tier that I added in the last video as well. So we're going to start off with Raffi Torres, and I'm going to say he is definitely disappointing because he's basically just been like a grinder slash enforcer for his entire career. Never really an offensive guy, and when you take a guy at the 5th overall pick, you probably want them to be, one of your franchise cornerstones and like a top line contributor at least. Raffi Torres had a long career, but definitely I'm going to put him at disappointing. Moving on now to Stanislav Sitov. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. He was drafted 5th overall by the Mighty Ducks in the 2001 draft, and he really played the majority of his pro career in the KHL, only had 3 NHL seasons with a career high of 30 points. So with the 5th overall pick, only playing in 3 NHL seasons and only having a career high of 30 points, I definitely think he's a flat out bust, and I'm even going to put Raffi Torres ahead of him because Raffi Torres actually had a rather lengthy career. Now moving along, we have Ryan Whitney. And this is tough because his 2 years in Pittsburgh, or the 2 years that he had in Pittsburgh that were very good, he was like almost like up there around a superstar caliber defenseman. He was very, very good offensively. After that, though, his time in Anaheim wasn't the greatest, wasn't putting up the best numbers, but I still think I'm going to put him as a top-line contributor. I feel like he's definitely a little bit above good but not worth the pick because, again, it is the 5th overall pick. It's not like, the 1, 2, or 3 pick. He wasn't really expected to come in and be a superstar, but he definitely was very, very good for Pittsburgh and was solid for the Anaheim Ducks as well. Moving on to Thomas Vanek, I'm going to put him as a top-line contributor as well, a guy who had fantastic seasons with the Buffalo Sabres, and if that continued for his entire career, probably would have been up there around a superstar, but he's just been rather consistent, and obviously now doesn't have an NHL job, but he definitely had a really, really good career and was a very good offensive player for the majority of his lengthy career as well. Blake Wheeler. Now, this is a tough one. I think I'm going to put him at superstar just because of what we saw from him over the past 2 seasons. 91 plus points in the past 2 years. That is very, very good for Blake Wheeler. And while I think that probably does come down a little bit in this up-and-coming season, I still think he will be over a point per game. He's a very important part to that Winnipeg team, and over the past 2 years, I would qualify him as a superstar caliber player. Next up, we have Carey Price, and I'm putting Carey Price at Hall of Fame talent. Has won a Hart Trophy with the Montreal Canadiens, and for a goaltender, that is very, very impressive, and he is definitely a goaltender that you could say might be the best of our generation. You can throw guys like Henrik Lundqvist into that equation as well, even though he is a little bit older than Carey Price, but Carey Price is amazing, and when he is healthy, he makes that Montreal team very difficult to beat, and hopefully now that he's healthy this season, Montreal can really thrive off that and make that jump into the playoffs that they were oh so close to doing this past season. Moving on to Phil Kessel, and this one is kind of tough. I want to put him up as a superstar, and I feel like I'm going to, but then I feel like I should probably put Vanek up there too. I mean, this is pretty difficult. He had a 90-point season with the Penguins, over a point per game last year as well. I believe he was point per game, multiple 30-goal seasons, and I'm really excited to see how he does now as like the number 1 guy in Arizona in terms of their offense. I think I'm going to leave him at superstar, but that might be one I change up a little bit later. Like I said, at the end of these, when I'm done, I usually go back and see if I want to make any changes before I finish the video. Next up, we have Karl Alzner, and this one is kind of tough because his time in Montreal really has put a damper on his career, and he was relatively solid with the Washington Capitals, in my opinion at least. And this is a really difficult one because Karl Alzner is now probably going to play in the AHL this season, and that kind of makes me want to put him at disappointing. But I guess the team that drafted him in Washington, I guess they got some good usage out of him, so I'm going to put him at good but not worth the pick. But these past couple of years for him have really not been good at all. Luke Schenn, I'm going to put him at disappointing because he actually still does have an NHL job, and he has been in the NHL basically ever since he's been drafted, so I think I'm going to put him at the disappointing category because he's not as big as a bust as this guy is down here. And now we're going to have Brayden Schenn, and Brayden Schenn I'm going to put as a top-line contributor as well. He's just been very, very solid. Probably not a number 1 center by any means, but definitely a guy who can fill out that second-line center spot perfectly, and was obviously a massive reason in the St. Louis Blues, come back from being one of the worst teams in the NHL late in the season to making the playoffs and then eventually winning the Stanley Cup. He was a big part of that. So I think definitely I'm going to put Brayden Schenn as a top-line contributor. Moving on to Nino Niederreiter, I think I'm going to put him as a top-line contributor. he's been a guy who's been pretty good since coming into the NHL and was actually very good this past season after the trade that sent him over to the Carolina Hurricanes. I think he's going to be in for a pretty big year. I'm a big fan of Nino Niederreiter, and I think I'm going to put him as a top line contributor because I feel like he is definitely a level above of Karl Alzner. But now I feel like I should probably put Thomas Vanek up in superstar because his time in Buffalo was just so good. I think I'm going to put Thomas Vanek as a superstar because at one point he definitely was. So I think I'm going to put him there. Again, I might change that a little bit later, but for now I think I am going to keep Vanek up there and put Nino Niederreiter as a top line contributor. Ryan Strome, I'm going to put at disappointing. He's probably slated in to be the second line center for the New York Rangers this season, and I'm not quite sure how I'd feel about that being a New York Rangers fan. He wasn't very good in his time in Edmonton, wasn't very good in his time with the New York Islanders besides maybe one season where he had a relatively solid year, but you never know. It's never too late, and maybe he can thrive in his second line center role with the Rangers, but I definitely wouldn't count on it, and I definitely would consider him a little bit disappointing so far since being drafted. Morgan Rielly, I think I'm going to put him as a superstar. This past season, in my opinion, he at least made that jump into becoming a superstar caliber defenseman. He was very, very good. You know, early in the season, there was a lot of talk of him potentially winning the Norris Trophy or definitely being in contention for the Norris Trophy at least. I believe he had 20 goals, like 72 points or something like that, and was still relatively solid as a two-way defenseman and solid in his own end as well. Morgan Rielly, I definitely would consider a superstar at this point in his career, so I think I'm definitely going to put him up in that tier. Moving on now to Elias Lindholm, I'm going to put him at a top line contributor because he was a top line contributor this past season. He was a part of that Gaudreau and Monahan line that was very, very good for the Calgary Flames. Yes, you probably could have put him down at good but not worth the pick if he stayed in Carolina and continued on the path that he was on with them, but that trade to Calgary, definitely the best thing that could have happened for him. It was a breakout year, and I honestly think that is just a glimpse of what's to come from Elias Lindholm, especially if he stays on that top line. He's definitely a player that I wouldn't be surprised if he's up around like a point per game over the next 2 seasons. I think he's that good. Next up, we have Michael Del Cole, and I think I'm going to put him at too soon to judge. Yes, it has been a couple years now since he's been drafted, and I definitely wouldn't argue if some people think he should be in disappointing, but I think he's going to make this New York team this season, and I honestly think he is going to play a pretty prominent role for them and just be a late bloomer. And again, he was a 5th overall pick. It's not like he was a 1, 2, or 3 pick, and if that was the case, then yes, I probably would have put him at disappointing or maybe even flat out bust because he's really yet to make a name for himself in the NHL. But again, I think I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and put him in too soon to judge. Noah Hanifin, I'm going to put him at good but not worth the pick. He's been a solid top 4 defenseman, not really anything more than that, not really a top pairing guy, but after the move to Calgary, he's been relatively solid as well and is a pretty big part of their blue line. So I think I'm going to put him at good but not worth the pick. Ole Juolevi, I'm going to put him at too soon to judge as well. He's a guy that I'm sure Vancouver Canucks fans are getting a little bit frustrated with because you're waiting for him to make that jump into the NHL, and it really has yet to happen. There has been injuries there, but he was pretty solid for the Utica Comets last season, and hopefully maybe by next year he can become a full-timer in that Vancouver Canucks blue line, because that definitely would be a big help for them, especially if Chris Tanev, decides to leave as a free agent. Then a guy like Juolevi could definitely slot in and play a nice role for them. Moving on now to another Vancouver Canuck, I think I'm going to put him at top line contributor. I wouldn't say he was a superstar this past season, but he was definitely very, very good, and if he continues on the path that he's on, he will most definitely by the end of this season be a superstar in my eyes, and a lot of people might already consider he is, and I honestly wouldn't even argue against that. Again, though, we just saw one season as a sample size for him, but it was like a very, very good season, so I think I'd already put him up here as a top line contributor, but teetering towards superstar if he continues to build off of last season. And now finishing the video off, we have Barrett Hayton. Obviously, it is too soon to judge because he's yet to play an NHL game. I believe Arizona does play tonight, though, and he did make the opening night roster, so we're going to see his NHL debut tonight, so hopefully he does well in that. And yeah, last night was very fun. We had some NHL hockey, some regular season NHL games. I watched every single game last night. It was definitely a lot of fun, and I found myself wanting to talk about it in a video, so let me know what you guys want to see for this up and coming season. Do you want me to do like weekly recaps of the NHL, or maybe even sometimes do nightly recaps of the games? Because like I said, last night I watched watched every game, and I wanted to talk about it in a video, but like that's not usually what I do on my channel. So let me know if that is something that you guys would be interested in, or if you just want me to stick to these type of videos and, you know, sprinkle in some topics that are going on within the NHL every once in a while, and that is definitely something I could do as well. I could definitely do like nightly reviews on Patreon. I think that would be a pretty cool thing to do. I just have a lot of things going on right now and a lot of things that I'm thinking of and trying to make the channel better, so I'm very curious to hear your guys' thoughts, and make sure to let me know down in the comments section anything that you guys want to see for this up and coming NHL season. So that is going to wrap up today's video. I really hope you guys did enjoy. Like I said, make sure to let me know if you guys want to see anything in particular for this NHL season. I have a lot of things in mind that I want to do, but I want to hear what you guys think first. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure to drop a like on it and subscribe to the channel for daily NHL content, and I will see you guys all in the next video.